Good morning, all. Again, welcomes to our FDP program. Let me introduce our today's session's speakers, Dr. Meenakshi Kanchal. She is postdoctoral research in Department of Computer Science and Engineering at Indian Institute of Technology, Madras. Earlier here, she has completed PhD from IIT Kharagpur. Her research area is on latex-based cryptography, and the today topic is on blockchain and bitcoins. So I request Dr. Meenakshi start her talk, and I request to also all participants at the end of the sessions, whatever your questioning and answer you can put in the chat box. I request Dr. Meenakshi, you can start the talk.
Thank you for the introduction, sir, and thank you for the invitation also. Now, and I would like also to mention, if anyone has a doubt, either you can ask me in between when I give the talk, or you can ask me at the last. It's up to the listener. Okay, so good morning. I'll be talking on blockchain and Bitcoin, and also just a flavor of multi-signature and its application in blockchain. So I would like to mention here that the backbone of blockchain technology is actually cryptography, and basically two primitives of cryptography is used to construct a blockchain. The first is cryptographic hash function that I'll introduce, and digital signature scheme that also I will introduce. And in blockchain, basically we use elliptic curve digital signature algorithm. This I will not discuss, but this is the particular type of digital signature. It is used in bitcoins. Okay. So Bitcoin and blockchain, it's actually a decentralized cryptocurrency. Now, why do we need, and what do you mean by decentralized? Decentralized means where there is no central authority which can say us which is the truth and which is not the truth. That means in case of money, everyone has the complete transaction and there is no central authority. That's the reason we call it as decentralized. And what do we need? And what are the problems we could think in decentralized network? So the potential problems we could face in the decentralized network is intercept, transfer and steal funds. That means what? Because there is no central authority, anyone could steal the fund, and also there is a chance of intercepting the transfer. If Alice is sending some dollars to Bob, there is a chance that someone intercepts it. Then, and someone may say that this is not sent by Alice, but it is sent by Charlie. So that is one malicious thing that we can think on. And then how to control it, we will see it. And because it is money without any authorization, money is involved here without any authorization because it is a centralized authority. And it is also there is also a problem with double money. Now, what do you mean by double spend money? Suppose, because there is no central authority, suppose Alice sends, there is a list of transaction which is maintained. It's a ledger kind of thing. Suppose Alice sends $100 to X. And suppose then we have another transactions, some X pays some $2 to Y, and then we have many transactions. And suppose in between we have here 4 transactions. And suppose again Alice is trying to send the same transaction, Alice sends $100 to X, then we can catch it. There is a way that we should be able to catch it, that Alice is spending the same amount, because every Bitcoin has some address. Every Bitcoin has some address, and then with that address we can see, or we can find out, that Alice is sending the same currency which he has already spent. That means he is spending the currency which he does not own it. Then all these problems, and this is equivocate, means it is without any commitment. There is no commitment in it. Now, so what features do we want? Because those are the problems. So what are the features we actually want in the decentralized currency? Because whatever currency we are using now, it has got some authorized organization like banks, and banks are controlling the monetary funds and everything. What do we need it? When we are thinking of decentralized, firstly, why should we go it? We should have some benefits out of it. Otherwise, why will we move from one entity to another entity simply? We want, because it is a decentralized, it is permissionless. We do not need to take permission from anyone. Anyone can get into Bitcoin. There is no permission. And also we need to look for double spends. It should be free of double spend, and also tamper proof. No one should be able to tamper it in between the transaction, in between the flow. So as I've already mentioned, that it is a decentralized currency, and transfer of Bitcoins between entities requires a sender to provide a digital signature proving ownership of the Bitcoins being transferred. Now why do we need digital signature? This sentence means that when Alice pays or transfers some money to Bob, Alice must sign the transaction. Otherwise, that is why do we need it? Why do we need it? This is to avoid intercept transfer, because anyone cannot claim that this is the transaction I have made. Digital signature is a primitive which helps us to avoid the intercept transfer. If Alice is paying $100 to Bob, only Alice can prove this statement that yes, I have paid it. No one else other than Alice can claim that this transaction has been made by some malicious adversary. Now when I'm mentioning that Bob is receiving, Alice is sending, so where will they send? Right? Where will they send? There should be some position or some place where Alice will send to Bob, where it will just, I'm saying Alice is sending, but where is it sending actually? If somebody is in 1960s, when we were in 60s, 70s, when we do not have any internet, that time we didn't have mail system, so we used to post. So when we post something, a letter to, suppose I'm posting a letter to my friend, I used to put my friend's address, right? Otherwise I will just say to the postman, give it to my friend. What is the meaning in it? So there should be some address. There is some address. Every person involved in the Bitcoin has some address, and in that address he receives and he also sends from the same address. And only the correct owner of that address can transfer the address. If I would like to, same thing, if I stay in some home, if I wish, I can change my address, I can change my place of stay. In the same way, only a rightful owner of the Bitcoins can change or can move to a new address. And Bitcoin infrastructure, along with the address, it also contains the database. And what is that database? The database is the list of all transactions. So it's a huge data. It's a database which contains all the past transactions. Now let us see how And then how, when I'm saying that block, there is a block, it contains list of transactions. Firstly, how do we form it? How the block is formed? Okay, this is an important issue that we will see. This point we will see. This point we will see. And okay, and each block, whoever creates the block, we call that person as miner. Person who creates, that person could be a human being or maybe a system, maybe a machine. We call a person who appends a new block to the chain a miner. And this process of finding a new block is called mining. And mining, that means when a new block gets attached or appended to the chain, that is the only way new bitcoins are created. Right? It is a digital currency. It is not our regular rupees that it is. We can whenever RBI wants, it can ask to give it to the machine, and then we have the printed form. It is not in printed form. It is a digital currency. And when do we get a new bitcoin into the system? Only when a new blockchain is appended to the system. Right. Okay, so this I need to talk about this point. Very important point. I'll come to that point. Okay, so when I'm saying that each miner, now I'll call miner. What is a miner? Miner is a person who appends a new block to the chain. Okay, so I'll call that big sentence, I will call it as miner now. Now the miner in 2009 and 2012, because finding a block is very difficult, that I will say why it is difficult. It is very difficult. So during 2009 to 12, the person who used to create a new Bitcoin, block, he used to get 50 Bitcoins. So whoever does this job, finding a block, that person used to get 50 Bitcoins. Then from 12 to 16, because computation powers increased in the society, so it has decreased. The Bitcoins was from 12 to 16, whoever used to create a new block to the chain used to pay 25 Bitcoins. And then slowly it got degraded from 50 to 12.5, and I think, if I'm not wrong, it is 6.25 Bitcoins now, or maybe half of it. Now if you see, it is decreasing geometrically, right? 50, 25, 12.5, 6.25 and so on. So with this rate, whatever this geometrical sequence, if we compute or if we measure, we can see that only 21 million Bitcoins we will come across. In existence, because how can I say this? Because I've already mentioned new Bitcoin comes, introduction of the new Bitcoin is only when a new block gets created, and whenever new block gets created, these Bitcoins were paid, and at present maybe 6.25. So in this way, if we compute, we will get that only 25 million Bitcoins. We will see in existence there will be only 25 million Bitcoins. And the smallest, now when I say rupee, so what is the smallest unit of rupee? It is pice, right? 1 pice, 2 pice and 100 pice is 1 rupee. In the same way, the smallest indivisible unit of the Bitcoin currency is Satoshi. And there is a history behind why they have named it Satoshi, because all this Bitcoin funda is introduced by Nakamoto Satoshi. So after him, the smallest unit is named as Satoshi. Okay. Right. Okay. So when I'm seeing each block, right, I'm seeing there is a chain of blocks. That is the reason we call it as blockchain. So each block actually has 80 byte block header. It actually, I will show maybe this, then it is more understandable. This is just the outer look of the blockchain. Inside it is very complicated, but this is the outer look. It has basically three parts: header, list of transactions, and special number. Okay, this special number also known as nonce. Okay, so I said it has block header, transaction, and special number that we have seen here. Block header is 80 byte, and this list of transactions, what does it contain? It contains all list of transaction. X pays something to Y, Z pays something to W, and so on. All these transactions it contains. So huge data. And this special number, right? This special number is associated with my this point, which I said important point. Okay. Now this is one block. Okay. Suppose this is block number 1. Sorry, ladies. Is it visible what I am writing? Can anyone answer?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So this is suppose block 1, and suppose block 1 is, we are done with block 1 and we need to create block 2. So this is a person who creates this block, a new block is called, I said, miner, right? So maybe now visibly we are seeing it is easy to understand. So person who creates block is called a miner. I'm repeating. And now what is the difficulty in creating a block? Why I'm saying creating a block person is so hard, will get 50 bitcoins, used to get 50 bitcoins and now gets 6.25 bitcoins. It's very valuable. 1 bitcoin is also very valuable. You can check it. So the difficulty is in finding this number. This is not given in the block. This is what the miner finds to create a new block. Finding this number involves lot of computation. In fact, we call in cryptography finding such a number is called computationally hard problem. That means computationally whatever available resources we have, it is difficult to find with those resources this special number. Okay, suppose, see, computationally when I'm saying it is resource bound. Okay, there are some resources. If you are giving me only those resources, maybe it is hard for me. But if you increase my resources, if you give me more resources, maybe that is okay. I can find. Now, if I give you a computation that 5-digit real numbers or 5-digit integer into another 5-digit integers, and I'm asking you to not 5 cross 5, I mean to say 5-digit. Suppose 90865 cross 103567. If I give you this multiplication and I ask you to say that your resource is, that means your time bound is 2 seconds. Give me the multiplication of this answer in 2 seconds. And it is computationally hard problem because your resource is bounded only 2 seconds. But if I say you, okay, you take 15 minutes and give me the answer, and it is not hard for you, you can find out. So in the same manner, computationally hard problems is whatever available resource we have today, whatever the highest computation power computer has, whatever the highest computation power computer has, with those resources, it is computationally hard. Okay, and this finding this number is associated with hash function, and that when I introduce the hash function, I'll come back to this. Okay, any doubt till now? Okay. Okay, now I'll introduce what is a cryptographic hash function. Maybe you all are aware of it. I'll introduce it again. A cryptographic hash function takes input as arbitrary length string. There is no bound in the input, length of the input. And the output is a fixed bits, fixed number of bits. Some x going to some y. This is a definition of hash function. This is a hash function, that any arbitrary string is going to some fixed number of length, string of some fixed length. It is only hash function. Okay, I have not said that it is cryptographically useful or cryptographically secure hash function. No, it is just a hash function. Any function which takes arbitrary length input and outputs a fixed length input, that is a hash function. Now it is useful for me in cryptography if it satisfies three properties: pre-image resistant, collision resistant, and avalanche effect. We'll see one by one what is a pre-image resistant. Pre-image resistant says, it says given y, any y from the codomain, you give any y, your task is to find x from the domain such that h of x is y. This is a pre-image resistant. That means it is hard, computationally hard, to find x given y which satisfies this property. And this kind of functions we also call it as one-way function. That means given y, finding the pre-image is difficult. Collision resistant says find x1, x2, find x1, x2 such that h1 of x is equal to h of x2. Okay, is it hard or am I missing something in this? When I'm saying finding x1, x2 from the domain set such that values are, functional values are equal. Is it something I'm missing here? Can anyone answer? Am I missing anything in this statement? I'm saying it is hard. Yes, I'm missing something. When I'm saying x1, x2 such that h of x1 is equal to h of x2, trivially I can take x2 as x1 and then I will get it, because I have not mentioned anywhere the condition that x1 should not be equal to x2. I'm just saying find x1, x2 such that this. So the important condition I have to put is find two values and they are not equal to each other, x1 not equal to x2, such that h of x1 is equal to h of x2. So this is what is collision resistant property. Any cryptographically secure hash function must satisfy it. An avalanche effect says that a small change, you change just one bit in the input and your output will be completely different. a drastic change in the output. That means suppose my input is 1010000010001. Suppose this is my input, and suppose my output is 1110011. Suppose this is my output, and this is x.
मैडम आपका वीडियो स्टक हो गया है।
स्टक हो गया है, मैं ऑफ करके ऑन करती हूँ।
नहीं आपका नहीं, मैं प्रेजेंटर के लिए बोल रहा हूँ। हाँ दोबारा से ऑन कर दीजिए। ओके
अभी ठीक है?
हाँ अभी ठीक है।
थैंक यू। ओके, सो suppose this is x1, this is y. That means I am saying h of x1 is y. When I am inputting this x1, the output is y. Suppose I am taking another input and I am just flipping one bit. Suppose I flip this bit and rest all same. Just I'll replace, I'm flipping it. In place of 0, I put 1 and rest all same. 1 0 0 0 0 1 0 0 0 1. And there may be a case that y may be complete zeros. Means so much of drastic change, it is possible. If a hash function is a good cryptographic secure hash function, it may be the case that just flip one bit anywhere and you will have a completely different output. You cannot predict anything. This property we call it as avalanche effect. And this is also required. This is required for cryptographically secure hash function. That means for blockchains, it is required. In fact, we also require another property to be more specific, puzzle friendliness. Puzzle friendliness. And this property says that you have x, and choose x from a distribution which has high entropy. Choose it from a distribution and this has high entropy. Then hash of k concatenation x is suppose y. This property says puzzle friendliness. With this property, that means when I know x, I am giving, instead what I say, what is the difficulty here? That you find your input. That is a difficult part, right? In cryptographically secure hash function, now I am giving you a part of the input. This is given to you. I am giving you x, I am giving you y. I am asking you to find another x1 so that h of x1 is y. What I am hiding is only a part of the input. Just a part of the input I am hiding. Still it is difficult to find. I am giving you maybe half of the bits I am giving you of the input and giving you the output. And I am asking you to find the remaining bits or give me other x1 such that h of x1 is y. It is again a computationally hard problem, and that property we call it as puzzle friendliness. So these are the properties that we require for a good cryptographically secure hash function. Is it okay? Any doubt in hash function? If you have any doubt, you can ask me, or you want me to repeat, I can repeat. Just tell me. Is it clear? Okay, so I assume that everything is clear. Okay, now I go back to this, finding this special number. With the knowledge of hash function, I'll talk about this special number. See, this special number is whenever a new block gets created, it takes the special number, takes all this input Okay, header, it takes your header, whatever is there in your header, it takes the list of transactions, and it takes this special, taking means finding. Okay, I'll just say taking special number. And whenever a blockchain Bitcoin gets created, I mean to say this chain gets created, there is some specification already mentioned that the requirement is first, suppose say 30 bits. 30 bits must be 0 and rest all could be anything. Rest all could be anything. No restriction on restriction after the 31st bit. Just the restriction is first 30 bits must be 0. And now the miner's job, because I'm saying miner creates a new block, the job of the miner is to find this S. He has this. He has this. Miner has header. Miner has list of transactions because transaction has already done. He need not create a new transaction. Transactions are done. And even output is not fixed here, just the condition in the output is, this is just an example 30 bits, it could be anything. The first 30 bits must be 0. Just that specification with the output, and with this part of the input, find this number. Find a number so that when you hash all this, you will get first 30 bits 0 and rest could be anything. Maybe all 0, maybe all 1, or maybe a mixture of 1 or 0. Anything. No restriction at all. This finding this number is hard. So when a miner finds this number, that time a block gets created. Because when suppose this is the existing block. Existing block and a new block is getting created. It will contain these nonce, and or it may no, it contains this, it contains the hash, it contains a hash value, it contains this hash value, whatever after finding the nonce, whatever this value is y, this value is in the header. Maybe other things also, but this value is also in the header. And then list of transactions, and then again miner finds this special number, and then again a new block gets created. Whenever this number gets found, a new block gets created. So that is what I have written in this point. Blocks are appended only when they find the solution of a computationally hard search problem. And finding this S is a computationally hard search problem. It is a search problem because it is finding it. Okay, so that was all about hash function. I said any blockchain uses two cryptographic primitives. One is hash function and another is digital signature. I have explained what a hash function is. So now we'll move to digital signature. Before moving to digital signature, if anyone has any doubt, please clarify. Otherwise, I'll assume everything is clear. Okay, I assume everything is clear. Now, digital signature. Any digital signature actually contains how many algorithms? It contains 3 algorithms. Keygen, signing, and verification. It contains 3 algorithms. First is a key generation algorithm. In this algorithm, public key and secret key gets generated for a user. Okay. And this sign algorithm, I'll explain here. Okay. This sign algorithm takes the secret key as input. It takes the message. Suppose the message is Bob agrees to pay Alice $1. It takes the message, it takes the secret key, and it outputs the signature. So what is the input to the algorithm? The input to this algorithm is the secret key and the message. Secret key and the message, and it outputs what? It is outputting signature. Let me denote by sigma. This is the signature, suppose. Okay, and then the verification algorithm. Verification algorithm takes the message and the signature and the public key. It takes the message, signature, and the public key, and it outputs accept or reject, either 1 or 0, Boolean function. Verifier is a Boolean function, either 1 or 0. It outputs either it accepts or rejects, no other state it has. Okay. Now you can see why do we need it? Why do we need it? Because we are looking into blockchain and then suddenly digital signature is arriving. This digital signature, the signing algorithm, if you see, takes the secret key of the user. And any digital signature, if you use a secure digital signature, a standard or good digital signature, it satisfies unforgeability security. That means no one can forge it unless and until you have the secret key. If you have a secret key, definitely you have everything of the user and you can forge the signature. But if you do not have the secret key, you cannot forge the signature. That means the signature cannot be forged. So what the signer does is, that means whenever now you just keep two things in mind parallelly, blockchain and digital signature. Parallelly you keep it in mind. In a blockchain, we have list of transactions, and I said X pays to Y, Y pays to Z, and so on. So when I'm saying it is paid, even I can go and insert a transaction that I paid to some X, right? I can also go and put a transaction. I can just add it. Now, how is it secure? It should be secure, right? The transaction.
Ma'am, again your video is stuck.
Okay. I think it's okay now.
Yeah. It's okay.
Yeah. So where I was talking about the list of transactions, right? So list of transactions. Yeah, it has many transactions, and yeah, for the security reasons, whenever a person is paying something to X, he signs that statement. Now the message is Alice is signing. Alice is signing the message that Alice pays $100 to Bob. He will sign that message with his own secret key. Now when he has signed with his own secret key, he cannot refuse it because it is his own signature, and no one can also forge it. That means no one can sign on behalf of Alice by changing just the message, and then in place of Alice he cannot put his name. So signature, digital signature helps in that way. And then the verifier will verify that yes, the signature is correctly produced or it is not faithfully done. It can be verified with the public key, message, and the signature. Okay, this public key works as the identity, and this secret key actually works as a proof to prove the identity. And if a signature is valid, it must be verified, and it is infeasible to forge. Again, some lot of properties involved and then proofs involved that yes, signature scheme is secure under some computationally hard problems again. So this is fair. Okay. So from that time we are saying miner does it, miner finds the number and all. Whatever mine does it, that means miner is doing lot of work, computational work, right? Lot of computational work, and that we call it as proof of work. And this helps us to solve double spend problem. Okay, let's see. Okay, how much time do I have more? Okay. Pros, what are the advantages of proof of work now? Why do we need proof of work? That means why do we want a miner to do lot of work? What are the advantages? That means why do we need this kind of decentralized network? What are the pros? What are the advantages? It is anonymous. That means anyone can join it, anyone can leave. It is anonymous. You can join with any name. So it is a fair work. And it is also memoryless. Now what do we mean by it is memoryless? See, we have a hash of the header, list of transactions and the special number, and then finding a particular type of Y, some particular type of Y. That first 30 bits must be 0 and so on. When a miner finds this number, maybe a person A1, A2, A3, so on, AN. Maybe all these people are trying. All these people are trying, right? Anyone who gets it will append. Means it is like a competition. Who first finds this S to get a special kind of Y. So A1, when A1 tries, maybe he has tried 1000 times. And when 1001 time he is running or he is trying to find this special number, he has the same probability of winning. It is independent of already 1000 attempts, right? It is independent of whatever 1000 numbers he has tried or 1000 attempts he has tried. 1001 time when he tries, it is independent of all that. So it is memoryless. That way we call it as memoryless. Okay. And non-interactive. What do you mean by non-interactive here? Non-interactive means, as I mentioned, that there may be n parties independently trying to find this S. They are independently trying. This itself says that it is non-interactive, but I'll explain more. That means they do not communicate with one another. There is no interaction. They are independently computing, independently trying to find this S. There is no interaction between these parties, because suppose the problem is to find S by on collaboration, that 1000 parties will collaborate and then find S. That will be a very inefficient system. Collaborating 1000 means really inefficient. So it is non-interactive. So that way it is efficient. I'll say efficient for non-interactive way here. No other way of efficiency I'm talking here. Efficient in this interaction way. So that is kind of an advantage of proof of work. And then immutability. Immutability means, see, this proof of work. Okay, I'll say here, and maybe I'll explain here this. Suppose this is the header and or the block. This is the previous hash whatever we have. Okay, suppose the previous hash is 00 CD. Suppose this is a previous hash. As I said, in the header you will have the hash. I hope you remember this value, this. y is the hash of all this. Okay, so this is a previous hash I'm carrying. Suppose the message is hi. And the number that we need to find is suppose some 5FFE, some number. Okay. And then carry out to another block. And suppose this is the number, and suppose the hash of this block is 00 EA, suppose. Then it will carry here previous hash. What is the previous hash? 00 EA. This is a previous hash. The message is oh hi, suppose. And the number, then find some number, and then some number find. And then suppose the hash of this chain is 66. Not necessary that you will have it may be 5, 6, 5, some BZ, anything. And then this hash will be carried to the next block, and then so on. Okay. Now what immutability means is, and then after this also you have many blocks, right? You have many blocks, blocks gets created, and then so on. Suppose in this chain of blocks, I take this block and I overwrite. I change this message. That means suppose I am an adversary and trying to change the message. Hey, oh hi, I have changed to hey, suppose. And then what happens? This hash changes. That means what do I need to do actually? When the message gets changed, all I have to do is find this number again. Find this number again if I want to cheat properly. Otherwise, anyone can find me that this is not the correct message and this is she's a cheater. Anyone can find that. If it is to be properly cheated, I need to find this n so that it satisfies the same condition, that hash of the header, the message, the number gives first 30-bit 0. So again, I need to compute that computationally hard problem I have to find. So it takes a lot of computation, not only for this, because when this gets changed, this will be carry forward here. That means this gets changed because now this is some new number, and so this is some new number. When this gets changed, then this hash also changes. So suppose after this we have 20 blocks, suppose. That means what? I have to solve this computationally hard problem 20 times. Means impossible. So what? This is what is immutability is. If you flip anything in the entire chain, everything gets collapsed. The complete block or the complete chain gets broken. So this is what we mean by immutability. And then the chain forks, definitely now a new, you should get this doubt. You should get this doubt, definitely, that I said that A1, A2, so on, AN, simultaneously trying to find this number, right? There is some chance, there is some probability that maybe 2 of them or 3 of them or more of them, they find at the same time, they find the number, maybe different number, but they find it, right? So what happens? Each person will join, will create a new chain, because A1 will, suppose A1, A2, A3 has found at the same time they found the special number. A will append a new block. A2 will append a new block and A3 will also append a new block because they have done job. They have done lot of work. Now what to do in this case? In this case, after they have appended, then after that, whichever block gets more blocks or whose chain is longer, that block will be, or that chain will be considered and rest will be dropped. Okay. So suppose it has, after this it has 20 blocks as I have written here. Suppose 20 block gets appended after this, and after this suppose 5 blocks, and after this suppose 3 blocks. Then this is the chain which will be available in the network, and these two will be dropped from the network. And this is the chain which everyone will follow. So that is what is chain fork is, highest work, and that gets the recognition in the block. Okay, so lot of pros, lot of advantages. Now what is the disadvantage? What are the cons? I am saying it is taking lot of computation power. Computation power means lot of electricity. Everything is computer based algorithms and everything. So it takes lot of electricity. In fact, in a survey, it has come that 1 Bitcoin takes the same electricity as 1.57 household in America. It is a survey of 2015, and then it again in another recent survey, it has come that at some point in 2020, it will consume the electricity that is equivalent to the same of the Denmark city in 2020. That means lot of electricity consumption, which is again really not good. And this affects market. Lot of energy consumption definitely affects market, and also someday it may also affect charges, electricity charges. Okay. Now 51% attacks. 51% attack means, see here the whole game depends on the computation. Whoever has the more computation power will win, because it is just depends on the computation that find the number and then new block gets appended. And suppose a person, because when a new block is getting appended or a new number is found, it contains list of transactions, and those list of transactions can be manipulated by a person who is finding that number. That means by the miner it could be changed, because he is the person who is giving the hash. So he may play with some mischievous things, he could do some mischievous things. And also suppose this 51% attacks comes from this advantage, anonymous. I said anonymity, right? Anonymity. This anonymity says anyone can join, right? No one has to commit anything. Anyone can join. And this person could be an adversary. And if this adversary, suppose owns 51% of the total computation, right? I think it is clear why 51%, because he has more. The adversary has more power than whatever available resources are. From the total available resources, if adversary itself owns 51% of the total computation, then he will win in finding the number. That means in finding a new block, because he has the more power. Now 51% of the total computation power adversary owns. So definitely he will win. So that is a kind of attack to the system. So this attack is known as 51% attacks, and this comes from the advantage which we said that it is an advantage, which is anonymous. So yes, 51% attacks. This is what is known as 51% attacks. Any doubt? Okay. But whatever pros and
No, madam.
cons. Yeah. Thank you. So whatever pros and cons we have discussed, and I said it takes lots of computation power. There is a chance of 51% attack and all that.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
This is a question from a participant side.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
read out.
Yeah. Yeah. You can read out.
In the pre-image resistant, are we interested to find X or many X for a given Y? Will we have many pre-image X? In other words, the mapping 1-to-1.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
You have the hash function doubt, right?
Yes, ma'am.
See. Okay. See. I may give you y1, y2, so on yn. Then you find for x1, maybe, I do not know if this is a question, h of x2. Is this a, could you read out the question once again?
Yes, ma'am. In the pre-image resistant, are we interested to find a X or many X for a given Y? Will we have
Yeah. See, finding 1x itself is difficult. If you can find 2x is after finding 1x.
Okay. And in other words, the mapping is 1-to-1.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Okay. So, okay, I understood. His doubt is it may not be. It may not be 1. I mean 1-to-1. Maybe 2x1, x2 and may go to the same y. x1, x2 may go to the same y. Okay.
Okay.
It is not 1-to-1. I got the question now.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. This is possible. Okay. So finally, it actually works. It is there from 9 years, so maybe it will go. It's very less chance of cheating because it has it requires to cheat. It requires huge computation, and every day block keeps coming, and it's really infeasible to rewrite old messages. As I said, it involves a lot of computation. Okay. And if you would like to see, you can see when I'm saying box keep coming, you can check. There is a website called blockchain, if I remember correct, .info. You can go to this. If I'm right, this is the address, blockchain.info. You can see that every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, a block gets appended. Okay. So now this is an exercise. If somebody is interested to study blockchain and would like to have, this is a question you can work on. I mean, just to better understanding that when I'm saying that work done, lot of miner is doing lot of work, you can just think on that how to estimate what is the total work done in the network. And just think on this question for your better understanding. Okay. And how much time do I have? Okay, I can. Now multi-signature, as I said, I mentioned that I will give a flavor of multi-signature and its application to Bitcoin. Now what a multi-signature is. I have discussed digital signature, right? Digital signature is, it has 3 algorithms: key generation, signing algorithm and verification. I'll just have a recap of that so that easy to understand multi-signature. It has three algorithms: key generation, signing, and verification algorithm. Key generation algorithm is a trusted authority. It's a trusted authority. It will generate the public key and secret key of the user, and it will pass the secret key to the user, and public key it makes public. See, this key generation authority could be a trusted authority or the user itself. If it is a user, secret key user will keep it to itself, and public key it makes public. Okay, and then the user signs this, signs the message M, any message, with the use of its secret key. Secret key is required to sign. This is an important point, that secret key is required to sign and verification is required to public. Public key is required to verify. Something different from the encryption decryption scheme. Encryption requires to encrypt public key, but to decrypt it requires secret key. But here it is different. Signing requires secret key and verification requires public key. That means the signature can be publicly verifiable, but signature should be given by only the legitimate signer. So this is the signature. Multi-signature is, suppose there is a message M, okay, which is to be signed, and it is to be signed, the same message suppose is to be signed by the parties A1, A2, so on AN. All these parties sign the same message, definitely with their own public and secret keys. With their own secret keys, they sign this message. They sign this message. Okay. Suppose this is sigma 1, sigma 2, sigma n. The same message is signed by this. Same message is signed by the parties A1, A2, N, and the signatures are sigma 1, sigma 2, so on up to sigma n. Now what will be the total signature? Total signature contains sigma 1, sigma 2, all this set, right? And the public keys. Now the verification requires the public keys of all the signers, because we have to verify each signature. So we require the public keys of all the signers. We require public key of all the signers, right? What is happening? So this is very easily, it could be done. The same message is signed by all the parties. Each party will give their signature, and then this is a total signature, and this is a total public key which is to be given to verify the signatures. Now always curious to ask for something better. Can we do something better? It takes lot of space because this n is unbounded, right? It could be anything. Polynomial could be anything in polynomial. So takes huge space, requires lot of time for verification also. Storage also takes time. Lot of public keys involved, lot of signatures involved. Could we do something better? That means, what is the first thing comes to our mind? At least can we compress this? Can this signature, can we have some function so that if we compress this into one signature, some sigma hat, and then with this sigma hat also we can verify all the sigma 1, sigma 2, sigma n, and this sigma hat should not grow with n, right? It should not grow with n, then there is of no, that makes no sense. This sigma hat size should be asymptotically same as of single signature, right? It should not grow with n. And this is the first thing we can think of. That somehow if we can compress, we can do something with these signatures and just give out of, because they are signing the same message. The same message being signed, can we combine it into one signature? So this is one hope. The second hope is, okay, if we combine the signature, still we need all the public keys. It also requires lot of storage, it requires lot of space, and then verification will also take time. Can we somehow reduce this time and space resources? Can we somehow do it? So the again next hope is, because we hope more, pk1 so on pkn, can we combine, can we have some function that if we compress it into a single public key, so that this sigma hat will be verified this pk hat, then this is the best solution. I do not know anything more we can think for. Out of n signatures, we have one signature which is the size of that signature is asymptotically same as that of a single signature, and same thing we have a aggregated public key and whose size is asymptotically same as that of a single public key. And this hope is fulfilled with multi-signature. This can be achieved using multi-signature. So multi-signature allows n parties to collaboratively sign on a single message M, and that can be verified with the aggregated public key pk hat. So very compressed signature, compressed public key, we are happy with it. Okay. And if I need to define it, I will say multi-signature has 5 algorithms. First is a parameter generation, because the system when we are working on, we should know that what are the parameters we are limited with. So parameters are given by an algorithm which I am saying by ms.pg. It takes the security parameter lambda. Lambda is a security parameter, and the second algorithm is the key generation algorithm. It takes the parameters, it takes input as a parameter, and it outputs the public and secret key. The next is the signature algorithm. It takes the parameters, it takes the public key. Now what is the public key? Because I am saying it is a multi-signature, there are n number of signers involved. This pk is the set of public keys, is the set of all public keys, those who are involved in the signature. And this secret key, because it is a signing algorithm works with secret key, right? So sk is the set of all secret keys. It is a set of all secret keys, and they all sign the same message. The message is M, same message. So the algorithm takes all this as input, because all this is required to output and signature, to output a signature, and then running this algorithm, the output is sigma, that is a signature, which is the compressed signature. And the next is a key aggregated algorithm. This algorithm means it takes the parameter and it takes the set of all public keys. This public key, set of all public keys, it aggregates into one public key. So this aggregated public key is it is something like this. I have written something like this. It aggregates. This algorithm will aggregate all the set of public keys into a single public key. And keep in mind that this should not grow. The size of this and this should not grow with n. Otherwise, it makes no sense. We could simply work with this. Why to complicate the system? If the size of sigma hat and pk hat they are growing with n, then we are happy with this. Then this will work. We do not need this. This should be independent of n. The next is a verification algorithm. Verification algorithm takes the parameters again, the aggregated public key, because now he has to verify, and the verification will be done with this public key, this signature and the message. With this public key, aggregated public key, the message will be verified, and this is the signature, that this signature is a valid signature or not on M with the aggregated public key. And sorry, this is not sigma, typo, I'm sorry, it is 0 or 1. That means if verifier accepts the signature, it is 1. If it rejects the signature, it is 0. Accepting the signature means he gets convinced that yes, it is the correct signature. Sigma is correct on M with these public keys. If he is not convinced, it is 0, that it is not a valid signature. Okay. Okay. Just a minute. I had something in mind. I forgot now. I had something in mind here, but I forgot now. Okay, now suddenly I've come up with multi-signature. We were talking about blockchain and Bitcoin. This blockchain and Bitcoin could be improved using this multi-signature. Maybe you already have an intuition now because you have heard blockchain and then multi-signature. Maybe you got some link between these two, that why, how can it improve its efficiency? How does multi-signature will improve blockchain's efficiency? Maybe you have some intuition already, but I'll discuss. See, I said this contains list of transactions, and this list of transactions, there may sometimes be a message, the same message may be signed by, because I said when, see, many things you have to link now. Okay, I said every signer signs the message M, and then it is included in the list of transaction. List of transaction contains the signature of the signers. That yes, this message could be that X pays some $100 to Y. Right, this could be the message. Or now if I message could be $100, could be anything, just the $100, and there may be many parties, those who have paid $100 to other parties. So all those messages, now because I said lot of data, it takes lot of space, and then verification will take lot of time. All those transactions which has some common message with them can be aggregated using the multi-signature. Isn't it nice that all these transactions, they have something common? So that is a message, the common message M, and all these signatures, there will be many signatures. The same message may be signed by many signers. There may be some 100 signatures, suppose, and these 100 signatures, just think on it, lot of space, 100 signatures will be accumulated to one signature. So isn't multi-signature making the blockchain efficient? And the answer is yes. All these transactions will be aggregated into one, right? So this way, every block we can use multi-signature, and that means it's good to use. Something good to the blockchain is done, because it takes lot of space and lot of computation and everything. Yeah. I wanted to give another exercise to think on. I forgot what was that. Okay. I forgot. Okay, any doubt?
No, ma'am.
Just wait karo.
I'm done. Thank you.